are the spectral children said to appear in the lobby and dressing rooms?
What is haunting the building's underground tunnels?
Are the lingering spirits of devoted staff still taking their posts, watching, unseen from the shadows?
Find out the answers to these questions and more as we uncover the evocative hauntings and history from the Egyptian Theater in DeKalb, Illinois.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
And this is The Haunted Atlas, a Haunted U.S. podcast. In the interest of fully exploring history of certain locations, The Haunted Atlas may discuss sensitive or disturbing topics. Listener discretion is advised.
The Egyptian Theater rises from downtown DeKalb with a striking facade of ornate columns, bold geometric patterns, and vivid colors inspired by ancient Egypt. Its glowing marquee and intricately detailed exterior immediately signal that this is more than a local playhouse. It's a preserved piece of 1920s theatrical spectacle. The Egyptian Theater has been entertaining the people of DeKalb for nearly a century, as the building was constructed in December 1929, and it was constructed by the DeKalb Theater Company. There was already a theater in DeKalb, Illinois, but they felt like it was too small, they kind of wanted to expand, and so this was kind of their solution, was building this new one.
They must have had a significant amount of money saved to do this.
I mean, that's true because this place is spectacular. It's beautiful inside and out. Now, the Egyptian theater structure is very much not unique to this particular building, and Egyptian culture in general was spreading throughout the United States, especially during this time in the 1920s.
That's bizarre to me. I wonder what was the catalyst behind that.
So it's a very interesting story. I also was surprised because when we think of the 1920s, we think of the flapper era. So I feel like the Egyptian culture fad kind of got sideswept.
Right.
The historical roots of this movement come directly from Egypt. So there's a section of land in Egypt called the Valley of the Kings, and this is primarily where the late kings of Egypt were buried. Howard Carter was a British archaeologist and Egyptologist who was convinced that King Tut's tomb was in this area, but no one could locate this tomb for years. And when I say years, I mean years. There was at least one excavation before the one that I'm going to talk about, but 1799, Napoleon went to this location to try to explore and excavate the area.
I did not know that piece of history.
Yeah. When I read that, I was like, this is such a significant person, and I would not have associated him with the Valley of the Kings.
Neither would I.
Right.
I guess he has so much else going on with his history that this is just kind of like a side quest.
Right, and honestly, the side quest was super significant. He did contribute to early Egyptology. But again, even though the deep digging kind of started in the 1700s, Howard Carter was convinced the tomb was here, and after years, he was proven right. In 1922, he discovered King Tut's tomb, and that is what spread this culture around the United States, was this news.
That must have felt incredibly validating for him. He knew it, and he was right.
Yes.
And it started a movement.
Right. And can you imagine being the person who gets to explore one of these tombs for the first time ever?
I don't think I would do that because I've seen the movie The Mummy.
I have not, so I absolutely would have.
I just think a lot of times in these burial places, Egypt and others, there are warnings about disturbing the dead.
You know what?
I'm hesitant.
That's a very fair point, and I didn't even think of that. For me, it's like, I was only thinking about how cool it would be to see this piece of history. Mm-hmm. But you're right. There has to be some respect there.
Right.
Now, to me, the Egyptian Theater opening in December 1929 was kind of a bold choice because this was weeks after the stock market crash that caused the Great Depression happened. And my thoughts are that the plans were already in motion. By October, they were probably set in stone. They had an opening date, etc. So they just kind of kept going with it.
Yeah, I think given that they've already poured money into it, they're probably hoping to make any amount of it back.
Yes. And at this time, concessions to the foundation of the building were still able to be made, so they did a couple things. So one of the things they did, their ceilings were supposed to be high vaulted ceilings, but instead they capped them low. So these low cap ceilings, not only was it cheaper to buy the building materials for them, but you can imagine the maintenance on them because they're so much lower was also a lot cheaper.
Right. Think of heating a super vaulted space versus more insulated.
I didn't even think about the heating. But yes. And the originally planned marble flooring was then replaced with mosaics of recycled tile. And I gotta tell you, I feel like without this being like a money compromise, I think these tile floors are beautiful.
Well, more unique, likely.
Yes. The building, even with these compromises, was still highly regarded by the public in DeKalb. And one thing that set this theater apart from its competition was the fact that it had the ability to show talkies, which at that time was a slang term for motion pictures with audio. Most other theaters at the time were kind of still just doing live theater. The Egyptian theater was also able to portray live theater and did so in vaudeville fashion, but because they had this talkie option, by 1931 it became a first-run movie house.
I didn't know what talkies were until we covered the other theater that we discussed where Elvis had his first kiss, allegedly.
Right.
And I hadn't heard the term talkies until this podcast.
No, me either. I think it's really cool learning the slang terms for this, for all these different eras. It's really... And for those who don't know, a first-run movie house basically means that it showed brand new films upon their initial release, usually within weeks. So, because of that, they were able to charge higher for tickets. And I'm, guessing that also knocked out the competition of being able to show these movies way ahead of the second-run movie houses.
Yeah, I'm imagining the logistics behind that in the 1930s to disseminate all of the film to the theaters must have been pretty challenging. So it makes sense that there were some that would get it first because you can't just, send a file over the internet or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that.
The Egyptian theater became so popular that JFK actually spoke here in 1959, and he was apparently here for a campaign speech trying to win the Democratic nomination.
What an amazing piece of history.
I know, so cool. Honestly, crazy to me that he wasn't even the president yet, this was just a random stop along his campaign. And according to the Egyptian theater's website, his speech's message was kind of about returning to the traditions of America because he feared that the nation was losing its physical, mental, moral, and spiritual toughness. And those 4 things were in a quote of his, so he did say all 4 of them.
Toughness is a very interesting noun to place behind those words.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In the mid-60s, we have another visit from a pre-president president. Specifically, May 14th, 1965, Ronald Reagan also came to the theater to give a speech. He spoke here for a local women's civic group. You can actually find the flyer online, which is really cool. I just loved getting to see that piece of history.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anywhere, though, what his speech was about.
I was wondering because it's a women's civic group.
Exactly. That was such a unique group to me for him to be speaking to.
Right.
And this was actually before he became even the governor of California, and obviously 20 years before he became the president.
Wow, I guess it just shows you the effort that goes into political careers, even before we might take note of them.
That's a very fair point. The Egyptian theater unfortunately began deteriorating in the 70s and officially closed in 1977. For good reason, because at this point, pieces of the ceiling were falling, so people were genuinely unable to sit in parts of the theater, otherwise they would have the ceiling fall on them. Well, pieces.
Why would they let it get to that point?
Is it possible that the Great Depression set it up so that they didn't have a ton of profit, they were able to keep going throughout the Great Depression, but it set them up for a not great economic time afterwards?
Sure, and I suppose if you aren't maintaining the foundation in the 30s and 40s and 50s, then it would be harder to play catch up in the 70s.
Right. I also think that the low ceilings were a good choice because if the ceiling parts were falling from these high vaulted ceilings, probably much worse. Ownership changed a few times throughout the building's history. For the majority of the time, it was owned by the Thomas Vallos family, who ran a chain of Midwest motion picture houses. But I could not find details of the ownership lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I also couldn't find confirmation, at least not from a reliable source, of who owned the building last. But in 1977, the building was sold to the city of DeKalb, and luckily the community in DeKalb around this theater formed the Preservation of the Egyptian Theater, or PET, who fundraised for restorations and got this place added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978, so only a year after it closed.
That's great that the community rallied so much around this, because it is such a piece of history, not only because it's been around for so long, but the artistry and the links to the pop culture movements at the time are very significant.
Yes. The fundraisers were successful, and they were able to reopen the theater in 1983. What I love about it is that the restorations did not remove the unique pieces of Egyptian history that had made their way into America. It's incredible.
That's great, because I feel like sometimes they take these buildings and think, oh, no one will want to come to it if it looks like this. We need to modernize. But in fact, if you leave it historically preserved, I think that gets more people to come.
I agree. And now, in addition to the films that it shows, it also holds community events and even weddings. You can rent out the place. In the 1980s, the theater also saw an unfortunate tragic event. Northern Illinois University's journalism professor, Irvin Kummerfeld, suffered a fatal heart attack in the theater. He was taken to the community hospital, but he unfortunately passed away there. And there's actually a full news story in the Northern Star from November 14th, 1988. When I tell you that I looked up this article because I was just curious if I could find any information on it, I opened the article and I was like, no, this isn't it. This is too modern. And then I looked at the date and I was like, oh, it is 1988. I feel like reading about his death hit me harder than some of the other ones that we've talked about. Not that like death can really be a hierarchy, but when you read stuff from like the 1870s or the 1700s, I feel like it's easy to just be like, oh, this is just a piece of history. This is in the newspaper that no one really reads anymore, or this is like written in a way that sounds like old language. And this one was so modern, it sounded like it could have been written today. And so it really, I feel like it was such a big impact. I, genuinely felt emotions about it because it was so recent.
I think that happens because when you think of the 1700s, those people are certainly dead.
Yes.
When you think about someone that died almost in the 90s, late 80s, they could still be alive today, theoretically. So I think that's why it does, because for me, it hits harder. I think that's why it does hit harder, because these people could still be alive.
Yes. And they named his family in the article. And I was like, well, I feel like his kids are most certainly still alive. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a reflective experience to have found an article so recent. Finally, the building required restorations again in 2010. And then in 2019, it began its biggest expansion with the addition of air conditioning, accessibility options, and an in-house bar, which I found super fun.
Wow, they didn't have air conditioning until 2019. That's very recent.
They didn't, but they did have a cooling system throughout the theater. So there are underground tunnels below this theater that kind of created airflow, and they had portholes in the floors of the theater that kind of allowed that airflow to get into the public room.
That's a great way to use the cold air from the tunnels to kind of equalize the temperature and keep people cool.
Yes. The Egyptian theater's aura, when it was first built, was absolutely a mirror of the current culture and style trends in the United States. And the spirits who occupy the building seem to be ensuring that this theater doesn't forget its roots.
Hey guys, I'm Tommy from Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky podcast, where we talk to real people and have real conversations about paranormal experiences, including ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and all high strangeness, and even a little bit of conspiracy too. So if you enjoy these freaky conversations, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're also available to watch on YouTube. Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky.
In a theater as well known as the Egyptian theater, the entertainers continue to perform even in their afterlife. I am so excited to get into this theater because there are thought to be 6 distinct spirits here.
That is a lot.
Yeah. And again, we can never truly know.
Right.
But this is based on investigations and evidence that people have collected, what seems to be the accepted different spirits here.
I also think that theaters having distinct spirits does make sense in a way, because if, the Egyptian theater was built for live theater, so I don't know who the 6 are, but it makes sense to me that performers are making themselves known in these theaters.
Yeah, big personalities.
Yes.
The first is named Irv, and he actually wasn't a performer, but a fan of the theater. So much so that he actually died in the building.
Oh, no.
He had been helping with shows and renovations in the 70s and 80s. And in 1988, there was a production of West Side Story. He was cleaning up afterwards and unfortunately died. Given his love of the building and the fact that he died there, I think it makes perfect sense that he still haunts it.
Yes, especially, we've talked before about if people get to choose their afterlife, where they want to spend it. Mm-hmm. And if he's still here, I'm sure that he is really enjoying getting to watch the theater evolve as the years go on.
Yeah, and even better is he does have a favorite seat in the theater where he's said to sit regularly.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
He's often seen as an apparition in his favorite seat, but he's seen in doorways as well. And it's almost as if he's working as an usher in the doorways.
I wonder if his dream was to work as, and he kind of started as helping out with community events and doing the renovations and was kind of hoping to get into that usher position.
But I feel like in community theaters, there are often volunteers as ushers.
That's true.
So maybe he literally served as an usher.
Yeah.
When people see him, they say he looks like he's still working. The other place he haunts is his old desk.
Oh.
I know, very much so a creature of habit.
Yes, I wonder if this is an intelligent haunting or not. I wonder if he's aware that he has passed or if maybe he doesn't realize it. And so when he just, quote unquote, wakes up, kind of completes the cycle again.
Yeah, he just does it again. It's like, oh, I'm going to serve as an usher. Then I'm going to sit in my favorite seat. And then afterwards, I'm going to go to my desk. Perhaps.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait, that would make sense. Because the last thing that he did was watch West Side Story.
Clean up after, yeah. Huh. So that's certainly his final days. After he died, his desk was placed into storage. But cigarette butts are found in the lobby, and the smell of cigarettes are commonly smelled, and that's in the space in the lobby where his desk used to be. So even though the desk isn't there, it seems that he's haunting the space. And I'm always skeptical of scents because they can be in different materials and the expansion and contraction of the materials can release them. But the cigarette butts are interesting.
Yeah.
How are those just appearing out of thin air?
When his desk was moved, you could still smell the cigarette smoke.
Yes.
I'm wondering if it's in the wall somehow.
Stay with me on this.
Okay.
When they took the desk out of storage, the smell in the butts stopped. So it's almost as if he was trying to say, hey, I'm still here.
Oh my gosh. Not that it can't happen over time, but the smell of cigarettes in a wall or cigarette butts appearing, that's not just going to stop. I mean, okay, cigarette butts appearing and disappearing, that's just never really explainable. But cigarette smell in the walls or in the desk, etc., that's not just going to suddenly one day disappear. It would probably taper off.
Right.
And then one day you're like, oh, haven't smelled that in a couple months.
Right. Not directly associated with the movement of the desk.
Yes.
There's another worker that is said to still be taking shifts at the theater, but he's not a front lobby worker, he's a janitor. He's actually seen on stage as an apparition, often standing to one side. He's said to wear overalls and either have a broom or a mop, which is why people assume he's a janitor. But he's said to disappear quickly once seen, almost as if he doesn't want to be noticed. And I think that could make a lot of sense for working as a janitor. You wouldn't want to be seen during the production.
Did you say that he was on stage?
Off stage.
Off stage. Okay. Here's my thinking. Him not wanting to be seen makes me think that it might be a janitor, but I was also wondering if there were any plays or live theater that had props and he was using a broom in the prop.
That's interesting. My other theory is, what if this is Irv?
Yes. It could be another manifestation of him.
Right. That's why, again, it's there are thought to be 6 distinct spirits, but you can never truly know.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to catch EVPs of each one.
Saying, I am so-and-so.
Right, which is, yeah, they could just be playing a prank.
Yeah. There is a story of a stage manager that actually saw this ghost one night, and he saw him so distinctly that he thought it was a real person. No one has been able to identify who this is, so they just call him Charlie or Charles.
What a random name to pick.
Absolutely random.
Also, that makes me think that it might not be Irv, because if the stage manager saw the spirit, I would think they would look up Irv to at least try to determine if that was Irv.
I would think so. The third ghost is actually a seasonal ghost.
Ooh.
It's the ghost of a little girl that can be seen and heard, and she's playing, singing, laughing in the lobby.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if she was like a daughter or of one of the performers or like a frequent visitor.
That's a great theory because this only happens in summer, typically associated with when kids are out of school. So she might not have been present in other seasons because she would have been in school, but during summer, she would be out of school, maybe running around the theater. However, before it was a theater, there was a house on the property. And the theory is that the family used it as a summer house. So she was there during the summer and not during the other months. So it's actually not linked to the theater at all, but linked to the actual grounds.
Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say for theory number 1, which if it's not theory number 1 at all, like we're positive it's the grounds and not the theater.
No, we don't know.
Okay, so if it's theory number 1, what I think could be an investigative thing to do would be to try to figure out who this spirit is and then try to find records of like where she attended school and then see if you can contact her spirit at the school in the other season.
That's a very cool theory. The other thing with the research that you're talking about, I mean, there's records of the family that owns the house. You could probably obtain her name.
Right.
Use that in an investigation.
Right.
The girl does not have to play alone because there's also said to be the spirit of a little boy. He too is seasonal, but he only appears during Halloween. So I guess actually they do have to play alone because they're not there at the same time.
Right. There have been a couple warm Octobers, maybe. Well, yeah, no, okay, if we're going about school.
Yeah, it doesn't coincide with summer break. The Egyptian theater actually used to run haunted houses.
Oh.
And this apparition appeared during a haunted house. And he said that he looked so real that the workers stopped him because they thought he was just a rogue kid that was walking through the haunted house. When they tried to locate him later, he was nowhere to be found. And they then realized he was actually a ghost. That's how he kind of came to be in the theater.
Right.
But since then, he's manifested again. He's known to play in the downstairs dressing room, appearing in costumes. So people wonder if he was a young actor or if he's just a child who's playing there.
Yeah.
Really love that he appeared on Halloween and is now there all the time.
Kind of a unique start to a haunting, you know, somebody appearing on one day and then like being there then for the remainder of their time. It's almost like he had heard about this event somehow and like visited and then I was like, you know what, this is a cool place.
Or I wonder if he died on Halloween.
Oh.
And that was just the first time that anyone had seen him.
Yeah.
So we've covered the workers, volunteers, children. Moving on to audience members. There's a lady in green that is said to appear on the balcony. When she appears, she has a cigarette stick, which makes me wonder if the scent of cigarettes and cigarette butts are actually from her. Also, the cigarette stick makes me think very 1930s era.
Yes. I wonder if when they moved the desk, she moved to that area. And then when they moved the desk back, she was like, all right, guess I can't be here anymore. And then moved.
And again, this is why you can't say definitively this haunting is Irv because it's his desk. You never really know.
Right.
She's seen often by performers on the stage, but it's not just during performances because she'll also appear during rehearsals.
Oh.
I think that could be rather jarring if you didn't know about the haunting, especially because she looks so period dressed.
Right. Like I would be startled that there was just a real person in period dress in the audience.
Yeah. And oftentimes she is seen seated watching the show, but she will also roam the aisles, which could definitely be disturbing.
Even if I knew about the haunting, that would be jarring if I was on stage.
Right, when you don't expect to see anyone.
Right. But I guess that's good practice for the actors.
Right. How to keep it together.
Yeah.
So the final allegedly distinct ghost here is found in the dressing rooms. She is said to specifically be near the women's bathroom and is heard crying. When people come here, they're said to be overwhelmed with sadness. And no one has been able to determine why she's sad, but she will also sometimes pound on the stall doors and walls. And that's a very significant word choice to me. It's not knocking, it's pounding.
So Irv died in the theater?
Correct.
And I'm wondering if his spouse had to come to the theater?
It could.
Wait, nope, that's assuming that she's passed, and that was 8. So she might not have.
She might not have, but she could have. The other thought is I wonder if it's an actress that didn't get a role that they wanted. And so they're kind of hiding in the bathroom crying. If she did want to go here to be alone, this would be a good choice because it is kind of an isolated bathroom. And actually, when members of Haunted US went there, they talked to the tour guide who said she herself experienced the crying in this bathroom. So much so that she was looking for whoever was crying to try to ask them if they were okay, only for it to stop.
That is so terrifying. If I were in a bathroom and someone real beside me was crying, that's already enough to make me feel heightened.
Right.
And so the fact of like trying to ask if the person's okay and then not seeing or hearing anyone after that. Here's the thing with social graces, right? Even if I think there's a real person in there, I'm not going to like bend down to try to see if someone's in there. So I would probably convince myself that the person just wanted to be left alone and then not check, see if anyone was in there. You know what I'm saying? Like I would convince myself that they just stopped. There is a live person in there. They stopped crying because they don't want to be bothered. And then I just leave.
I think it's also different if you work there, though. If
that's true.
You probably want to make sure that nothing's wrong.
That's fair.
And I do wonder if she didn't get the role or if she's linked to another ghost. Perhaps the young boy, because he's also down there. Or maybe Irv.
Yeah.
Who knows? In addition to these alleged 6 spirits, there are said to be other strange happenings here. There are reports of blue balls of light in the tunnels under the theater, and there's no natural explanation for this that I could think of. They are said to kind of float down the tunnel and disappear. The only thing that I could think of is if this is happening when the lights are up in the main theater and the vents are still there, maybe it's coming through the vents. But other than that, I can't think of any explanation for light in an otherwise dark tunnel.
Yeah, I can't either. When you say blue balls of light, it's like, is it like an orb? So could it be that something in the tunnels is giving it the blue hue, but it's an orb?
Yeah, or it could just be a blue orb.
That's true. Yeah. Because it's not as though we've heard stories about anyone being down in the tunnels. I'm assuming people were there maybe for maintenance, but like as for an individual primarily hanging out in the tunnels, it's not like that exists. So I can't even think about who this might be.
If you do want to see these lights or any of the spirits for yourself, you can actually investigate here. In addition to being able to visit the theater, there are flashlight ghost tours and private investigations offered. If you have been here, we would love to hear your story. You can email the team at hauntedus.com and include Haunted Atlas, the Egyptian Theater, in the subject, or find us on social media at Haunted US. Tune into our next episode to see where we drop the pin on our adventure across the Haunted US. This episode of Haunted Atlas was presented and researched by Sarah Sweeney and Erica Barrett, supported by research from Haunted US head writer Mitch Goth, with production assistance by David Sweeney and music by Colleen Johnson. Our executive producer is Brandon Rugsey. Haunted Atlas is a production of Haunted US. Visit hauntedus.com for more information.